Welcome to the Spa Girls podcast, the self-publishing podcast for authors. Each week we bring you self-publishing tips, tools and resources. I'm Shah Barrett.
I'm Cheryl Phipps.
And I'm Wendy Bella, and welcome everyone. We don't have any Trudy J with us today, but you've got us.
We will soldier on.
So
we'll try and manage without
pluses and minuses, basically, right? So today we thought we'd talk, because April for us is about genres, genre expectations. That's what we're sort of targeting and talking about on our Facebook page, on our month. Yeah, so that's what we're going for. So today we're covering reader expectations for romance and its subgenres as well as mystery. So basically these are our opinions, and they come from decades of reading, really. I mean, let's be honest, between us, what, 20 plus years?
No, don't.
Well, I'm 21, so
that's right there.
Well, I've been reading romance since I was 11, so that's 45 years worth of reading romance. Just saying.
Just came right out with it.
I just came out. You just own it, man. Own it.
Yeah.
And so I'm thinking more than 100 years collectively of reading.
Very kind. Very kind. Yes.
How's that?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, if you think about, and I'm sure our reading has all changed over the years, and I think genres have changed over the years. I think they were more defined years ago. They're a little bit looser now. I think there's
more. There's
so
more
many
genres.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
subgenres.
Yeah.
Yes. So what are genre expectations? So what do they do for us?
Yeah. Well, I mean, first of all, I think I personally think of genre and reader expectations as kind of two sides of the same coin, if you know what I mean. It's what we expect as a reader picking up a book. If I'm picking up, a paranormal romance, there's certain expectations I have in that genre. And, I guess it can be like there can be crossover, which we'll talk about a little bit later on. Yeah. And but I think it's important to know them as a writer, from many points of view, not least of all, it's how you kind of connect with your readers. Like you're delivering to them a set of
it's almost guidelines, right?
Yeah, sort of, but it's not formulaic.
It is a recipe.
Yes.
I think there are ingredients in the recipe. You can change the recipe.
Yeah.
But if you're making a banana cake and leave the banana out, then you haven't made a banana cake. How's that?
Yeah, and I don't want to know you, quite frankly, if you don't put the banana
What is wrong with you people?
And if it has chocolate icing, I'm your girl.
And it also, so that ties in nicely with marketing. So if you've made a banana cake and you put an outside package on it that says it's a banana cake, but there's no banana in it, then you're going to have disappointed readers and the reviewers and disappointed eaters.
Nothing worse is there.
And also I think as a reader, if I've got my reader hat on, if I pick up a book and have a certain expectation and it doesn't meet that, then I will not go back to that author again.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it takes a lot for me, because there is so much choice now. There wasn't in the old days. We just didn't have that. And I'm,
in the old days. You're getting old when you start.
We've talked about it before, but actually the truth is I would never have not finished reading a book unless it was a wildly inappropriate genre for me. Inappropriate in the fact that if it was horror and I would never sleep for the rest of my life, I would stop reading that if I didn't know that that's what it was. But now I just don't have enough time to pick up a book and get a couple of 2, 3, 4 chapters in and think, this is not what I bought. This is not what I expected.
We read differently though, Shed, don't we? We read differently. I don't know what you guys are like. I don't really like. I'm faster with my reading now.
100%.
And whereas I used to sit down with a book and it's like, a good sort of couple of days and, kick back. Well, now it's like, I've got a Kindle that's got books on it. Many I've downloaded.
I feel like the consumption of all entertainment, to be honest, is faster. Again, I mean, showing our age, but I remember going to the video store, to the Blockbuster or whatever, and getting the new release out. The new release might have been, released in the cinema a year earlier. Like now we expect it on Netflix or whatever immediately.
Exactly.
It's just everything has sped up a little bit more.
And on that particular topic, I had a release last week it went out overnight, and by that morning or midday, I'd had people emailing, messaging me and telling me they'd read it. So that's how quickly people are getting it. It's in their home,
especially if they're expecting it. You know, like it's been on pre-order or something. The
so
voracious readers.
Taking it all back to genre expectations.
Yeah.
We're talking tropes, settings, tone, all that sort of thing.
Heat levels, that kind of thing. How long it is as well. So there's the actual physical, if you like, aspects, even if it's, you know, Kindle pages, to me that's still physical. How it's packaged, of course. We're not going to necessarily talk about that, but that's a big part of this as well. And I just feel like it's like to me as a writer, you're starting a conversation with a reader, and it's that kind of connection, and their part of it is reading the book and digesting it and hopefully leaving a review, but not necessarily. And it's about you basically saying, here you are, and delivering to them what it is they're expecting, and that chosen subgenre.
Even if you write across genres and your pen name, a particular pen name, has several books in it, which mine doesn't, and I know Wendy's doesn't, then you still want to make that blurb and the book and the promise, don't you? You still have to make it all
absolutely,
you know, meld together.
So do you think it's important to know the genre expectations, the tropes, everything is all dialed in before you start?
I think in a perfect world, yes.
I do. I think
sometimes your book changes, don't you think?
It does. I agree. But I have you know, lately I've never ever done that. I'll be honest with you. You know, I've got the odd books in, and I've never done that. But I'm just starting a new series, and I'm like, okay, I need to know if it's what it is. You know, like Grumpy Sunshine.
And the people that we've spoken to, the people that are doing really well, this is a tactic that they are employing. And yes, I agree. It is something that I'm going to be looking at as well when I start out.
My sense is for experienced writers, I think if they might not necessarily write it down or even do an outline, but they kind of innately know, okay, this is what I'm writing. I'm writing a you know, mafia romance, you know, blah blah blah. Whereas maybe newer writers, you're still kind of learning the ropes, and maybe you're kind of morphing between the two, and also maybe you don't understand the expectations, which is why we're going to talk about our understanding of the expectations.
That's right, because today. I think we've all done this. We've straddled the line.
100%.
Haven't we? You know, we've straddled. I know Trudels has, and I know that Cher has, and I have. We've got some books that we've loved to write. We don't know why they haven't sold well, but then when we as years have gone on and we've got the experience, we've understood. We've straddled genres, straddled tropes, straddled lines, so the readers don't know where it sits.
Very often that's the case, and it's and we're not talking about formulaic or formula, because goodness knows if we could come up with a formula, we'd be selling it, and we'd be living on a tropical island somewhere with millions. But what we're saying is there are expectations, and in order to sell books, frankly, you've got to meet those expectations. So
if we start with romance,
which is the best genre there is, and
I would say the biggest.
Yes, biggest selling, and then there's usually mysteries, suspense kind of a second. Sometimes they jostle depending on who's keeping the who's keeping the tally.
I kind of meant in the widest range subgenres.
Subgenres of romance. Now we've listed some today. I did a quick look on, and it's as of Amazon as of today. So when we're recording this, like now, as you're listening to it, they have Amazon lists 25 subcategories under romance. And then under some of those, there's a subcategory. So for example, like this romance, and then there's historical romance. Then under historical romance, there's
Victoria,
a whole raft of them, you know, medieval, Regency, you name it, it's there.
Second World War, you know.
Excuse me. So that if you're wanting to label something in your head, like what it is I'm writing, that's probably a really good place to start. We'll talk a little bit later on about how to go about researching genre expectations, but just to kind of kick things off, it's a way of categorizing things. And probably Amazon, the Kindle store, is your best tool on a platform, like a retailer platform, to look at that.
Visually,
Visually,
need,
yes.
So basically you need, what does a romance novel need? And it's emotionally satisfying and an optimistic ending, right?
Yes, which is good old RWA. That's their term. You'll also hear
romance writers in America or Australia.
Yes. You also hear happy ever after or a happy for now ending. It's all about a happy ending, but it's also about like, as they said, an emotionally satisfying.
Yeah.
And this is where I think a lot of beginner romance writers sometimes get unstuck or conveying when talking with, I've seen it on forums and I'm pretty sure everybody else has. And you'll see people referring to, say, for example, Nicholas Sparks as a romance author. And he's not. So yes, it's about a couple, but it's not a happy, uplifting ending. It's sad. And whilst there can be sadness in a romance novel, it's not sad at the ending. People, you know, the hero or the heroine don't die, or they're together, and there's a promise, if you like, to the reader that they will, whether they're married or not, forge a happy life together. We're reading it for the emotional connection, and it's
if you don't get that, right, if you don't get those expectations met,
you're not writing a romance.
I, for one, am completely gutted, because I read romance.
Yeah,
we all read romance, right? So when I start a romance, I know that while it might get to a point within the book that's very gritty and I'm emotionally drained, I know that there is going to be a resolution.
Yeah, exactly.
A happy resolution.
Yeah. And just because if you're writing a book that has a romantic arc in it, doesn't necessarily make it a romance either. And I also see that said a lot. So you could have a science fiction, for example. You could be writing a science fiction, and yes, there might be a subplot of a romance, but unless it's specifically about that relationship, about their meeting, so that's kind of like a really important element, is what they call the meet cute. Then there's romantic tension. They you know, the up and down of the relationship. Yes, they want each other. No, they can't have each other. You know, there's
then they're together, then they're not.
External conflict, blah, blah, blah. You think, no, all is lost. And then happy ending, they're back together again. Unless it follows that arc, then it's not a romance. But it could be a science fiction, for example, with a romantic element, but you do not market it in the romance. You don't write it as a romance.
Basically, unless it's following their journey, and it has that happy for now or happy ever after, it's not a romance.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
It's the romantic journey, and it can be, just a kind of a side note, we don't write LGBTQI plus books, but it's the same for those novels as well, those romances as well. And it could be menage, it could be reverse harem, which is a subgenre of romance. You know, it could be a group, but it's still about that group's romantic journey towards a happy ending together. So
what is a subgenre?
It's like, if you think of romance as the giant umbrella, then it's the other one sort of underneath it. So you've got that romantic journey first, and then, I don't know, to me the subgenre is kind of like the clothes that you put on that romantic journey, if you like.
Okay, so if we're talking contemporary romance, we've got Small Town.
Holy cow, this
Cowboy, Billionaire, Menage, Reverse Harem, Bad Boy, MC, Mafia, MMA. I mean,
Royal, Western. You like contemporary romance is set in modern times. I would say
the biggest.
I'm pretty sure I'm right.
It's
the biggest. It's the biggest subgenre of them all, and it covers everything from your, Harlequin desire, or actually on the traditional front, but it, like, from your insta love romances, like lengthwise up to meteor ones.
There's so many, right? And that there are different heat levels. They're different. There's sweet, there's, there's sexy, there's really sexy, like there's the levels are so different.
They are. And for each of those little ones that we talked about, whether it's a bad boy romance versus, say, a small town romance, you can have the bad boys tend to be, for example, sexier, and they've got to have a bad boy, not just a guy that's having a bad day. Your small town romance could be anything from a sweet small town which doesn't have any sex on the page to a super steamy. So each one of those gets broken down even more into expectations about what readers are expecting.
What were you going to say, Shea? I thought were you going to dive into?
No, I think that was it. Yeah.
Yeah.
The heat. I was thinking of the chilies, you know.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the chilies.
So
yeah,
I think the thing is, when we're talking about a category like contemporary romance and subgenres, that's why it's so important you don't straddle that line and you get that expectation and you hit those tropes and you hit those cover demands and those blurbs and your characters, because this is where the danger comes of straddling a line. So if I see a cover that looks like dark romance and I pick it up and I read it and it's not dark romance,
correct.
Don't do your research on that. I think it's vitally important.
It's for your benefit. It's
it'll make everything easier. Everything easier.
So other subgenres, what have we got? What about mystery like Share? What have we got there?
Well, let's stick with romance for a sec, because it's also historical. And like I said, I think Amazon lists like 8 historical subgenres. The ones that kind of immediately came to mind were medieval, Regency, Victorian. Then you've got JAF, which is Jane Austen fan fiction, which has its own expectations as well.
Highland.
So that and
the list goes on.
Absolutely. And I mean, for example, Wendy, you're writing Regency romance. What would be the genre expectations that you would expect from that? I'm thinking balls.
The thing about Regency is it's a very small time period, and it does actually straddle. And that's the thing. Towards the end of it, you have to be very careful because you're moving into Victorian, out of Georgian or So there's that expectation and fashion change and stuff. So and Regency's huge, but it's only a very small time period. So expectations would be amazing dresses, amazing venues, lords, aristocrats, all those keywords that hit the tropes. There would be a pure heroine, usually, who's an innocent, and a hero that isn't an innocent more often than not. Those sort of things. I mean, I think that's blurred a lot, to be honest. I think there's the reverse, and there's so many different takes on it now, as opposed to what it used to be, very traditional, the way it was written back in the day. I mean, I think there's a lot.
There's a bit more license.
That's right. And I think you see those covers, right? I'm just looking on my wall right now, but that there's beautiful dresses and guys in breeches and lovely settings in the background.
And the reason why knowing those is that those are elements and ingredients that you want in your cake that you're baking, in your book that you're writing. But also, as we said before, it helps so much with the marketing. It helps deciding what your cover's going to be like. It helps just connect with those readers. It also gives you kind of grist for your newsletter mill. So if you know that your readers love about Regency balls or Regency clothes, then if you're sitting there puzzling over what to write for a newsletter that month, do a great post on
what did they
lace
wear,
or
how did they wear their hair,
exactly.
Days, and that's the thing. I think, don't get away from that basic understanding of that genre. You really need to know that genre, and you need to immerse yourself in it on your social media posts, on your everything has to be on trend and on point. It really does.
So coming under the kind of the banner, it's probably still under, usually it is still under contemporary romance, but there's also romantic comedy. So that I kind of think of that as swoony feelings plus laughs as well, and I would tend to think that they would be more contemporary romance, but you're not writing a comedy first, excuse me, you're writing a romance first, and then you can have elements, and it's quite hard to maintain romantic tension with humor when there's humor in a story. So often it will be side characters maybe that provide the humor or the situation, but
I think that it's also a really gray area as well, because quite often if you write comedy in your books and you write suspense and you write steamy, you can write all three and still be in a small town romance. That
exactly.
So it's quite a hard one. I think that's a very blurred line.
Yeah, and a lot of them are like that, like with the historical, with the Regency Victorian time thing. A lot of them are. And that again comes down to doing your research and knowing if you're going to choose this particular one, are there blurred lines? Or, for example, I would say in the case of Jaff or Jane Austen fan fiction, that it has to be based on the Jane Austen, canon kind of thing. So,
and I think that plays into the fact of who would you align yourself with? Who do you see yourself not mirroring, but following in their path or writing in their world? And that is what you want to make sure, that you're hitting all those tropes and points of that kind of romance. So if you were writing Jane Austen fan fiction, you have to have all the things that make that kind of book.
Yeah, absolutely. Exactly. And more so when you've got a blurred line, like I was saying with the comedy and this bit. Covers and blurbs are vitally important. Because if you look at it, you can tell by a small town romance when you pick it up what it's going to be if the cover's being on.
There's no point in hinting at it. You want people to know straight away.
Yeah, absolutely. So then we get into kind of the heat levels, and this falls under, not just under contemporary romance, but this kind of covers all the romance subgenres, and each individual subgenre will often have more than one heat level pertaining to that subgenre, if you like. So, for example, small town contemporary romance can be super clean and sweet, then sweet with some spice, then super spicy, and then super spicy. So, and everybody's definition of those terms is slightly different, whether you're using little eggplant emojis or whatever you're using. And the word sweet is often used in two different ways by authors and readers alike. So it's a little bit of a trap in that, to me, sweet is a really lots of feels, often a super uplifting kind of, but it can also be super sexy. Whereas some readers and authors use the term sweet to mean no on-page sex, but it happens kind of off screen. But you can also read sweet, super spicy books. So that one, it's my personal ick is people describing romance books as clean, because I really dislike that term, but it is used currently by Amazon's categories for clean and wholesome, which again, gag. It just feels super what's the word, judgmental, but it's their category.
Like sex is dirty.
It really is. I don't like it. And look, no shade on people that don't want to read. I like reading books without it as well, and certainly writing them. So, but it's just the terminology. So hopefully one day we can come up with something better. And then under the clean and wholesome label comes inspirational books with a usually Christian, but with a religious element as well, and it's usually the religious journey as well. So it's again, just do your research there, know what your expectations are for there, and know when you're using the term sweet that your readers and you know what you mean by the word sweet.
It's a minefield.
And then there's the word steamy, and like
I know, and
one person's steamy could be somebody else's barely boiling the kettle kind of thing,
steamy, sexy. I mean, it's hard to know what to call it. Like, do you is it a steamy romance? Is it a sexy romance? Is it a open? Is it closed? Or is it
exactly? I think of Pride and Prejudice as super sexy, but there's no raunchy scenes. So it's
as opposed to Bridgerton which was raunchy and steamy,
very raunchy.
But
then you see, I wouldn't. The TV series, yes, but not the books. So
exactly. Oh no, not the books. No, I'm talking about the TV series. Totally different, right?
But one sub genre of romance that I would say is like high heat is dark romance. That is usually it's usually danger. It's kind of things that often there's violence in it.
Quite an alpha male usually, isn't it?
Oh, super alpha male. And it really pushes the boundaries, to be honest, of romance. It's kind of like right on the edge. And that is something that I've seen really, I think it would be over the last 10 years, probably even 5. And I think it's certainly very popular.
It is.
You
very
see it
popular.
on TikTok is super, like it seems to be featured. Maybe it's just my feed, but it's, you know, examples of dark romance would be, you know, The Lovely Sky Warren, for example. It is
And
definitely
Emma
pushing.
Jones,
It's definitely pushing
writers,
pushing the boundaries.
and Malcolm.
Definitely pushing the boundaries, and the readers are expecting, this is the key, I think, for expectations, they're expecting bad things to happen in that book. You're not writing a dark romance if they sit down, have a conversation, and the alpha hero goes and mows the guy that he's got a vendetta against lawn just to you know, make peace. So bad things are going to happen in dark romance.
And then if you moved on to erotic romance, which you know, to be honest, it could sort of blur that line a little bit.
Absolutely.
Right? You know, because I've read some dark romance that's quite erotic.
Absolutely. And you can get contemporary romance that's super erotic. You can get historical romance that's very erotic as well. And erotic romance really tracks the development of the couple is really if you like, shaped by the development of their sexual journey.
Secondary
so it's kind of
integral. Sexual journey,
you wouldn't have an erotic inspirational romance. I'm just going to put that out there.
And we're not going to start that.
There's very few things that we say as a given. Well, you wouldn't market it that way, but you know, let us know if you're writing that, because I want to check it out.
We'd love to know. So next on our list is fantasy romance, which is usually set in epic worlds.
Yes, and that, again, that kind
not
of
P&R though, right?
No, there is a difference between paranormal romance and fantasy romance. Fantasy romance, people are reading for the kind of the fantasy world. Paranormal romance, they're reading. It can be modern world. It's usually modern world, but with kind of magic elements and, you know, your sexy shifters next door kind of thing, or in the ocean, should it be a shark shifter?
So fantasy romance has werewolves and shifters, but it's more about the world.
I wouldn't say necessarily it has werewolves and shifters. It's really more about the world. People are reading, they read fantasy for the world building, and so they usually tend to be a bit longer. But again, it kind of comes, fantasy romance, it comes under that umbrella of paranormal romance. So it kind of depends where you're. And this is where I think, particularly for anything paranormal, fantasy and sci-fi, they're otherworldly, not necessarily literally, but it can be quite blurry on that one, and that's where your blurb and your cover come in. If you're on another world, you kind of want to stick a planet on there or make a really clear indication.
So I think rockstar romance is fairly
this one
really.
I feel like a lot of the rockstar, I mean, it was super popular, wasn't it, about 5 years ago? It felt like every man and his dog, or every woman and her dog was writing rockstar romance.
My dog could write one, but we could probably give it a shot.
Well, that would be good if she could. Put it to work, man. But it's usually people would or readers tend to expect a certain level of heat from this, and you've absolutely got to have a rock star in it.
and isn't it true that it's just become its own subgenre?
Oh, great point, Cheryl. I wanted to mention that because Amazon are kind of taking and adding on, they're changing the thing around a little bit. So if something kind of takes off,
Amazon.
I know, right? And there's no warning. Another shock.
Yeah, shock horror.
So keep an eye on that. We'll put a link in the show notes, but it's super easy. You just look up best-selling list, you know, and you'll see it down the left-hand side, and you click on romance under the Kindle store, and then it will drop down with all the subgenres. But yeah, they do add, and it is currently, I'm pretty sure it's on there as a subgenre. Let me have a little look. Yes, it is. So it's got its own, you know, category, if you like, which is pretty amazing.
Okay, so we've got sci-fi romance, which is a story in outer space, usually an alien male.
And so that's used interchangeably with alien romance, the term alien romance, and we've had Honey Phillips on. You know, I'm going to put the links in the show notes, but you know, it's usually a human female getting it on with a sexy alien male who usually has alien form, and usually a lot of additional equipment that she really enjoys. How's that?
That's probably it in a nutshell.
Did you like that?
Probably should just
So we move on. Okay,
Yeah.
monster romance. I think we can move on from that one too, because we get what that is. It can be on Earth or out of
see,
space,
here's
but
the thing,
then it's
though,
more
but it
like
is
alien romance, right? With the
yeah.
tentacles
So
and
monster
appendages.
romance is things like there's. I mean, you name it. People are coming out with monster romance. It's the moment.
We're probably going
as
to
they
move
say.
on from
I
that.
like how you're fast moving me on to monster romance.
We're scared, Char, to be fair.
Are you really? So I've done a lot of research on monster romance because I happen to love monster romance, and I would say the genre expectation for monster romance would absolutely be sexy times plus. I don't think there's a huge number of sweet monster romances.
Righto.
But there might be. So it could be something like, the Shy Minotaur and his maiden. And please feel free to use that title. And again, send me the link when you upload it, because I'm going to buy the heck out of that.
Okay, then. So we've got new adult romance. That's obviously college age. Then we've got LGBTQ plus, which is several genres that include sort of M&M and that sort of thing.
Impreg, that kind of thing. Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
Mystery. Talk to us about mystery. So something bad has already happened, and the main character has to figure it out. It's sort of a
whodunit.
Can be historical or contemporary.
It's absolutely a whodunit, but not necessarily has something bad happened. Sometimes, especially in the first book in the series, it's imminent. It's going to happen. It's going to happen really, really soon. But not necessarily. There's going to be some hints, and there's going to be lots and lots of clues and red herrings and that sort of thing. And you better make sure you tie up those loose ends, and you better make sure you solve the mystery and find the killer. And
no cliffhangers at the end of the book.
No.
One day.
Although you can have overarching in a series. So not something that anybody could say, but they didn't say anything like that. Although, of course, there are readers that they'll find those little gems. But, in the next book, they'll go, yes. Yeah. So that is a thing.
So would you say then the genre expectation as a whole for mystery, and we're going to talk about the different, because like romance, it's got little categories underneath it, or subgenres, not little, big subgenres.
Yes.
Would you say that the reader wants to help solve the puzzle along with the main character?
Absolutely. They don't want it to be glaring, but they don't want you to arrive at the ending and go, and it was this person. And they go, what?
Yeah.
But you mentioned them once. You didn't tell us anything about them or give us any indication that they could be a possibility.
Yeah.
And now they're the person that orchestrated all this? No. That's right. And
so you've got to another author. You can't just turn up with a baddie at the end. You have to feed them the information so that they can come up with that that person being the baddie at the end.
Yeah. Because I am talking from a cozy mystery point of view, and mystery is huge, right? Mystery. I tend to, and I think Wendy does a bit as well, weave some mystery through most of our stories to make them enjoyable, or just to get the reader, really, really hooked on the story or the series. But as far as a cozy mystery is concerned, there's a definite vibe of, you have so many people that could have done it. And at the end, the right person, you realise, is the person that did it.
Yeah. Actually, I think that's another really good point to share about, let's face it, everything you say is a good point, but it was about, you can have elements, like you could have mystery in, for example, a small town romance as well. It's an element though, so it's kind of very much, readers are still reading for the romance, but there's like a suspense through it. You do that a lot, and you've done that, Cheryl, with your contemporary romances too.
Yes. Yeah.
So if we're talking mysteries, we've got different sorts, right? We've sort of got procedural, which is the police.
Police detectives, it's kind of...
You've got to be pretty sharp with that sort of stuff and know what
you need to know your stuff.
Like the CSI thing. And actually, we've had some really good people on, forensic person and our detective, Adam B. Richardson. They can talk about the different aspects of a crime, and there's lots of Facebook pages that you can join if you want to know how somebody could perpetrate the crime.
There was a group, wasn't there, for writers writing that kind of thing.
Spatter, not splatter.
Yes.
Look at that. We remember stuff.
I I've actually got that in my latest book, and it's going to the editor in a couple of days, and I'm waiting to see if my editor will pick up on it, that there is no L, that it is actually meant to be spatter. But he might say, well, no, nobody else will know that.
Yeah.
But we know it now.
Yeah,
We
can't
do.
know it.
And when you get that review that says there was one typo that was wrong.
You always find an error just as you put your book up.
Yeah.
Okay, so the other thing is the thriller, the suspense where the
suspense.
main character or characters are racing against the clock.
Yeah.
Suspense,
So it's a time
maybe,
sensitive
Yes.
kind of story. It's like a ticking bomb,
Yeah.
either metaphorically or in actuality.
Yeah.
That's kind of the difference. And they tend to be more bad happening, I would say. That's my genre expectation. If I'm picking up a thriller as opposed to a mystery, the mystery is more even though bad thing has happened, but the thriller often is something bad's going to happen and it's going to be not nice.
So we've got domestic thrillers, which are
Yeah,
psychological.
those are sort of, they scare me, to be honest.
No, I don't watch things like
I
that.
struggled through the girl with the girl on the train, and that
no. I like the procedural, those sort of things are quite good, like the Night Agent, things like that is just those sort of things great, but anything that's a little bit gonna freak me
the
out.
Psychological ones scare me because I'm worried that it messes with my brain, or that I'm worried my brain is messed up. But that's why people read them.
Well, we could probably tell you that anyway.
I quite enjoy the girl on the train, actually.
There you go, you see.
Yeah. Okay, so we got spy thrillers, which are good ones as well, because they're not real life to us, whereas domestic thrillers could be.
Yeah.
Romantic suspense. So, you know, that's
where I feel like that's a kind of a marriage of the two, isn't it? Of a romance, but it's a strong suspense, and often they'll solve the mystery element together. That's kind of what brings them together, isn't it? That's my take on it anyway.
Yeah. Supernatural suspense, so same as the thriller with added elements of supernatural.
And shout out to our friend Yvonne, who writes as Evie Lind. She writes excellent ghost supernatural suspense. It's not massively, there's just a small, like it's like a little bit like with your Raven Sinclair series, Wendy, a touch of magic for you, and for her it's a touch of the ghost, but it's there. But if you don't like supernatural, they're still super readable as a suspense, really good suspense. And then, of course, there's cozy, which is our favourite subgenre.
Better be.
What is the go-to on cozy, Cher? What do we know?
Well,
give us all the secrets, Cheryl. The genre expectations.
Well, I think I've pretty much laid them all out. As in a mystery, you just have to have a whodunit. You have to have a top person that's going to solve the crime, and they are the main thread through the book.
And they're an amateur, though, aren't they? They're not necessarily
always an amateur, and usually a woman. So there is actually a category for female sleuth, and I think woman detective or might be woman sleuth. Not quite sure how that goes, but they can be men. You know how we've got the bromance now with the guys and the romance. We've also now got males writing cozy mysteries.
Brosy.
Yeah, and a lot of them are quite good. I quite enjoy them. I mean, it's like everything, you get something fixated in your head, and you think that's the way it's always supposed to be. But change isn't necessarily a bad thing. Of course, the mystery is huge. The solving it is massive, and the person is the sleuth that ties it all together. And you can have pet cozies, you can have culinary cozies, which is what I write, and what I'm just getting into now is paranormal cozy mysteries, which is absolutely huge. Just as paranormal women's fiction is growing, so is a paranormal cozy. Well, I say it's growing, it's just huge. It's been huge for a long time, and we've had a couple of authors on here that are just doing fantastically at it. So I think cozy mysteries is a very, very big genre these days.
It is. It's like a subgenre of mystery, and then under cozy you've got your contemporary and your paranormal, and then you've got, of course, when we had Samantha Price on talking about Amish cozy mysteries. So it's kind of like your inspirational cozy. So
and she is rocking that. She is absolutely rocking that.
100% rocking it.
Just like
not in a rock star way, in a rock way.
Amazingly.
And often the other, aside from the mystery element, it's usually no violence on the page. No spatter. There can be a spatter, but you don't see the spatter happening.
No gore.
No gore.
So
Okay.
somebody could be bludgeoned, but you're not going to see that. And often usually with any of the crimes that are perpetrated, you don't actually see the crimes happening.
Yeah.
You're always after the fact solving it.
And the town is a big player.
Town is a big part.
Huge. The town it does become a character, I think, as in small town romance. It becomes its own character, and the characters within it play important parts, even if they only have a small part in each book. The fact that you're bringing them in, as in a small town romance, through a series, people love it. People absolutely love it, and they're expecting it.
Yeah, 100%.
And just like with romance, you can have a mystery element. With a cozy mystery, you can have a romantic element, but it's not the focus, is it?
No, and it was actually frowned upon, I think, originally, and now it's more widely accepted that it's not necessarily going to be a torrid affair, but there's definitely going to be
a love interest, for example.
A love interest, or very flirty, actually. And the cop who thinks she's a nutter, but actually,
Actually, he admires everything about her. He loves the way she bakes peanut butter and caramel biscuit. Okay.
You know what it reminds me of? This is going back a few years and probably showing my age. The series called Moonlighting was Sybil Shepherd.
Oh, I love that series. Bruce Willis and Sybil Shepherd. Oh,
yes.
Yeah, that's what she said, Sybil Shepherd. She did. She just didn't say it loud.
That's right. That's right. But that friction. That will they, won't they? To a lesser degree, I think, in a cozy mystery. But
absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, and so then, sorry.
I was just going to say, Cheryl mentioned women's fiction as well, and that's not really under the umbrella of romance because it's not about romance. It's really about the woman's journey. So I'd say that's the genre expectation for that. But it can be paranormal, contemporary, historical. There's been quite a move from a group of authors to write paranormal women's fiction with older heroines, and when I say older, I don't consider them older because they're like 40 plus, because now that feels young.
Same age as us, though.
It's very young, isn't it?
Yeah, well, just coming into your wisdom then. So, and it can have a romance or not, but it's not really about that. It's about her. Very female centered on that one there.
Different.
So
different,
and different. Yeah, I think.
More to do with the character than
it is. Yeah. And but I'd still say it's uplifting. To me, it's uplifting.
I agree 100%. So I think we need to move into now how to research all of this information we've just put out.
We can say it in a 4-letter word, can't we? How to research this.
Everybody read.
Yep.
I mean, when I'm starting a new series all around town at the moment, and so I'm just looking to see what other people are doing with their book covers, with their blurbs, with their
And this is for historical or
both
contemporary?
Actually, both. So I'm starting a new series for both. Covers, I'm going to change covers, but I'm doing a lot of research on because these series that I've just finished started many years ago. So I'm just, like you share with your paranormal, you have to hit those tropes, right? You have to nail them.
You have to, and I think, you know what? It's really, really good to come from a place of excitement rather than being daunted, because as we said, there are often crossovers. True. And if you don't think, right, I'm going to make this series the very, very best I can by doing my research, by looking at the genres, by likening myself to somebody and seeing what their covers are depicting and how their blurb is actually written, you're going to get it more right than you won't. Right? Like when we started, it was just all a crapshoot,
It's like throw balls up in the air, and whichever one lands with a name on it, you're going there.
And now there's so much information, right? There's so much out there that,
And the thing is, if you're overwhelmed, and I get that it's overwhelming, but just start reading, and even if you don't read the whole book, I know, God forbid, but you could read the blurbs, look at the covers, read the reviews. The reader reviews will often tell you,
this wasn't what I was expecting. And, like, how often have you read a review and it's not, this wasn't what I was expecting. It didn't, it didn't portray this in the blurb, or it didn't. Those sort of things are real giveaways.
Absolutely.
Don't just take the word of one reviewer, though.
No. You
have to have a cross section.
You want a cross section, and and we're not saying that you can't write what you want to write. If you want to write whatever,
voice,
it's fine. You go for it. You do you, boo. But we're trying to make it, we're trying to help you basically sell books, and this is
hit the
how you
ground
sell
running.
books. Hit the ground running
instead of floundering in the sea of no real genre. No, straddling all the genres and coming up with nothing because nobody knows what that is.
And the thing is,
yeah.
until you're huge, or Colleen Hoover or someone else like
or
that,
Wendy Valla.
no, but you know what I mean. You can't just throw up what you want. It's just not going to work for you.
Well, you can, but nobody's going to buy it.
But no one's going to buy it, or they might buy that one and then not go on the second one. But so yeah, I mean, unless it's a standalone, there's always those outliers, right? We know it, we've heard them, we've seen them. But in this particular, the way things are at the moment, I think if you're going to write genre, then you may make sure that you had all those traits absolutely bang on, and they know what they want and they know what to expect.
And I would also, I guess, suggest too, sometimes the ones that are perceived as outliers, very often you peel back the layers, and very often you've got that romantic arc. You can that romance in the beat book that we often talk about. You can pinpoint, for example, if it's a romance, those beats. It might look a little different on the outside, but underneath it, it's still hitting those expectations, those genre expectations, for example.
That's sort of, if you want to put a twist in there that isn't going to be well received or welcome, then you're going to get kicked back, I think is the thing.
And it makes everything harder. It makes getting reviews harder. It makes actually what I call shelving your book. So, imagining Amazon or the other retailers have bookshelves, where to put your book. Like, does it fit the science fiction alone, or does it actually fit paranormal romance? Like, it's that kind of thing. You need to, it just makes it easier, and it makes it so much more cost effective if you're paying for advertising.
You need to believe in your book, right? And I get that you've written something and it's wonderful, and it's not selling. There is nothing more heartbreaking than pouring your heart into a book, and then it just sits there languishing, which it's probably going to do anyway if it's the best.
The reality is,
but give it a shot, give it a shot.
Give it its best chance.
Give it, put it out into the world and go, I've done everything I can for that. I've had all those genres, all those tropes. My covers are great. My blurbs are good. It's tight. Well, let's just see what happens and get on with the next one.
So what would your advice be to somebody if they've written the book, it's already done, and then really not quite sure where it fits? What would be your advice at that point? How would they figure it out?
I'd actually have a critique group or a friend or somebody to read it and say, what do you think? But, often friends want to tell you what you want to hear. So the next step for me is an editor, because if you say to the editor, I believe that this is a cozy mystery, do you think it's a cozy mystery? And they read it and go, no, it's not. It's an alien fantasy. With
a minotaur with 17 tentacles. The thing about it is, but the thing about it is, most people who are writing a book have usually read, right?
I would hope so, but you'll be surprised. You'd be surprised the amount of people that said, I've written a romance, but I don't read it. I don't like reading it. That one gets it. That one sticks in my craw. Just saying.
I know it does. What I'm saying is, before I wrote my first book, I had read so many historical romances, gazillion, and I knew exactly how to write that book because I had absorbed all these books, and I knew where it should go. I knew where it should hit in the middle. I knew where the black moment should be. And the thing is, there is no excuse really when you first start out not to be a little bit informed, because there is just so much information.
Well, it takes a bit of time.
We had to rely on reading, right? These guys, man, there's information out there now.
And there's Facebook, and there's reader Facebook groups as well. And for example, if you're writing monster romance, you join the monster readers group and you look at what they're talking about and the books that they love, and they'll recommend books. And I love this book because it's got this, and this in it. And it doesn't necessarily mean it has to be a minotaur with tentacles, because goodness knows minotaurs don't have tentacles. But it's got those elements. He chased her, or he did this, or they had a bonding ritual or whatever. There's those elements, so you can learn a huge amount from social media in the right places,
and listen to some great podcasts. And
I don't know
exactly
we got
where to
any
find
great
them.
Wow.
You know what, I think we've probably talked ourselves to death on
Well,
this,
I
Kate.
think we need to direct people to spargirlspodcast.com, where you can find all our previous episodes.
And
if
all
you're
of these authors that are doing these very things.
Yeah, and we try really hard. I'm a complete online stalker of folk. I'm just going to say that right now, and in a non-suspense thriller way. But if we see an up-and-coming subgenre, we will try really hard. Like we've had we've covered Insta Love, we've covered the monster romance. We try really hard to get the top indie sellers in that genre on the podcast. So we're the girls to come and listen to. Just saying, if you're listening to this on your podcast app, we would love you forever if you would leave us a review or even just a star rating. That super helps us get found in the algorithms. And we're also on YouTube, so come along to Spy Girls Podcast at YouTube. Check out, you'll see our in-person videos. I personally like having those on playing while I'm looking at people.
How much we love them, because
and if you'd like to join our Superstars group, where we would be very happy to help guide you on, if you give us a blurb and we could tell you what we think that genre is, for example, come along to patreon.com/Bargirls Podcast.
All of the above stuff. So that was us talking about genre.
And your homework is to go and read. How's that for nice homework?
Any questions, let us know, but have a great day, and we will be back next week.
See you next week.
Bye.
Keep well. Bye.